Welcome to our unique financial channel. Folks, there's really nothing else like it that I know of. We set up spreadsheets and run numbers to show you how important financial concepts can affect your retirement. Uh, we look at sequence of returns risk. We look at the importance of your asset allocation, the impact inflation can have on your nest egg, the relevance of the 4% withdrawal rate. Is that still relevant today? We look at how Social Security can impact your financial planning and so many other considerations. Please consider subscribing and sharing this channel. Let's go ahead and get into some numbers here to show you what we do on this channel. Let's say, for example, you're ready to retire. You got 600,000 saved up. Don't let all these numbers scare you. We're just going to run all kinds of different scenarios here. Let's say you got 600,000 and you need 5,000 a month in expenses, which should be 60,000 a year. And let's say you're going to get 2,000 from Social Security and you're able to take that right now. We can change all these variables, but this just shows you. Now, what we're going to do is we use data for the last 100 years from the S&P 500. We figure it's going to be somewhere in this range going forward. It's probably not going to be any worse than the worst case scenario, which was a depression type years. So we go ahead and run it for every single year for the last 100 years to give you real data of what would have happened in the past and what may happen in the future. But what we want to do is update this. We want to do you need 5,000 a month. You're getting 2,000 from Social Security. We're just using round figures here to show you how these numbers work. So that'd be 3,000 that you'd need from your nest egg every month, which would be 36,000 a year. And we also want to put in a 3% COLA to try to keep up with inflation. We can change all these variables, but now we want to do is update this and show you. And while it's updating, I want you to notice 5,000 a month on this 600,000 with the 2,000 come out of Social Security, that would be a 6% withdrawal rate. That's quite a bit higher than the 4% rule that people have recommended over the decades. I'm not a financial advisor, but I just love to run numbers for people. Now look what we have here, folks. In the last 100 years, using this data, you would have an 89% success rate using the returns for the last 100 years. You would have 11% of the time you would run out of money after 20 years. This is what you'd have after 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years. You notice there was a lot during the depression type years. Why? Because we had such poor returns like we mentioned before. So let's go ahead and look at these numbers maybe in a little bit more depth. What would happen? This is with leaving it all in the S&P 500. Now you would think if you did a typical 60-40, that this 11% failure rate might go down. Watch what happens, folks. This is really important to understand this. We're going to go ahead and update this. Right now, we have 11% failure rate. Once we go to a 60-40 asset allocation, meaning 60% staying in the S&P 500, 40% going over into a cash reserve account. So when the market's going down, you're taking these sums right here that you're taking from your nest egg. You're not taking them from the S&P 500 because that's already going down. You don't want to sell low. You don't want to be a seller in a down market. So you want some kind of a cash reserve account over here that you can take these kind of funds out of instead of knocking the S&P 500 down even faster. But I want you to notice something, folks. We went from an 11% failure rate to a 21% failure rate. How in the world is that possible? Are you telling me it's better to leave 100% in the stock market and take your chances with down markets? Look at what happens here, folks. What happens is you're taking out 6%. But if I've got this cash reserve account running at only 3%, you're losing ground every year because you're taking out too much. So you really got to look at what your asset allocation is and then what your withdrawal percentage is. If this withdrawal percentage is too high compared to what you're getting on your cash reserve account, you could have a real problem. Let me show you what, let's just say you just left it all. You had none of it in the S&P 500. You just left it in this 3% account. Watch what happens now, folks. Obviously, if you don't have anything in the stock market, if you just have it all in a cash reserve account, how many times do you fail with that kind of percentage? 100% of the time. Why? Because you're needing 6% on this 600,000, but you're only getting 3% on it. So that shows the importance of looking at what your withdrawal rate, if that's too high as compared to what you're getting in your liquid account, your cash reserve account, the account you're using when the market's going down, you're going to run out of money even quicker. You're going to run out of money in just a short period of time, just a little over maybe 15 years. So let's go to a 60-40 split, the one they often recommend. Let's go back to that and see how many times you'd run out of money. Again, if you're only getting 6% on your, if you're withdrawing 6% of your nest egg and you're only getting 3% on that liquid account over here, you're going to run out of money 21% of the time. Why? Because this is too high. You need to either have more money in your account or take out less. Let's go ahead and do $4,000 a month, which would be at the well, let's do 4,500. That would be 5% withdrawal rate. See how much this changes. 5% withdrawal rate on this 600,000, taking into account Social Security that you're taking. You're going to need 2,500 from your account initially, and that's going to grow by 3% a year. Now you just have a 5% problem time with taking out 4,500. Why? Because your withdrawal rate's lower. You can do this 60-40 asset allocation and have your money last 95% of the time after 20 years, and again about the same after 30 years. Just have a few problems during the Depression years and also during the year 2000, which we have that showing right here, 1998, 1999, running out, and you're down to 23,000 after 20 years. The year 2000, you're actually running out of money in 18 years. So we don't just look at the Depression type returns, we also look at what might happen. As recently in the last 25 years, we had these down years and down 37. And look at that. In that case, with this scenario, you'd actually run out of money in 18 years. But watch, what could you do differently if you want to stick with the 60-40 asset allocation, but you need to take 5% out, which would be 4,500. Watch what happens if we change what you get for your COLA in down years. This is so crucial. This is one little thing that you can change that can really help out. Watch what happens if instead of giving you a 3% COLA, I'm going to do a negative 2% COLA after down years. Obviously, you don't know what's going to happen during the year, but in the very next year, if you knock it down by just 2%, instead of this 2,500 growing by 3%, it's actually taking a negative COLA of 2%, so you're down to 2,450. You wouldn't really notice the difference that much. Let's see if this 5% can be helped out just a little bit by just doing that minor change. See what the numbers might show you here as it's recalculating. From a 5%, look at that. That's all you would need to do, and you'd have no problem after 20 years, after 30 years, just making that minor little change, staying with the 60-40 asset allocation. But again, if you start taking out too much, if this withdrawal rate is too high, it doesn't really help much to change your asset allocation. Again, because if this withdrawal rate is 6% and you're only getting 3% of the money, you saw what happens. You lose out. The more you leave in your cash reserve account, the sooner you're going to run out of money. I just want to cover this because that's what we do on this channel. We set up all kinds of spreadsheets. In this case, where we're looking at the importance of your asset allocation, but even more important, how much are you withdrawing? If you're getting away from that 4% rule, we saw if you got up to 6%, you'd have problems no matter what you did with your asset allocation. Here, it helped a little bit to go to 5% withdrawal rate, a little bit more than the 4% rule. But what really helped is just changing your COLA. After negative years, just instead of giving yourself a 3% COLA, you take a 2% cut. It wouldn't affect drastically your lifestyle going from 2,500 to 2,450. You'd still be getting your 2,000 from Social Security, and that would be increasing by 3%. So that's what we do on this channel. We love running numbers for people, but I just wanted to cover that situation here. What happens when your asset allocation, or excuse me, your withdrawal rate is too high? It doesn't seem to really help to change your asset allocation because what you're putting over in your cash reserve, if it's not keeping up with what your withdrawal rate is, if you're only getting 3% and you're taking out 5%, increasing your asset allocation isn't going to help. It's actually going to hurt. But that's what we do on this channel. We love running numbers for people. We love setting up spreadsheets. Hopefully this made sense to you. Please consider subscribing. Please let people know about this channel. We do all kinds of different spreadsheets, run all kinds of different numbers to show you how these variables can impact your nest egg. Thanks for watching.